Are you sure?
Here's the 30-second lesson on what legends know. Never ask a bride why she's getting married. Don't wear a skirt on a windy day. Deodorant is not a shower. Don't sniff chili flakes. And don't forget, saving is not investing. Legends don't just save, they invest in mutual funds. Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
If you lean back and think about how our lives have changed in one generation, then our generation must have seen the most dramatic transformations in the history of humankind. I myself, professionally, have actually filed a story on a Morse code machine. Dot dash like that. What is it? Please Google, or maybe you will see a picture on your screens as well. That is how Telegram was invented first. So in Mokokchung in Nagaland in 1982, there was an ambush, there was a story, teleprinters were not working, so the story had to be filed on a Morse code machine. From that, we've come to today's communication, where on this phone, I can file anything. I can file a video, I can record this video in real time. It will reach anywhere now with 5G, etc., etc. That is that change. Again, from big manual typewriters, when in India, portable typewriters were not available. Now you see how much better our lives have become. Google came in, right? Google came in, internet came in, and now we are heading for AI. Now, if you look at all that dramatic change, I can't marvel at one more, even more dramatic, and I would say consequential change that is facing humankind and us and our country as well. And that is the change on population. So my generation started growing when we went to school. Every bus in the country was painted with a family planning slogan, with a lal tikon, सुख का नाम है बस दो बच्चे, सुख की निशानी लाल तिकोन, and every language had an equivalent of that slogan. That is, डॉक्टर की सलाह मानिए, दो बच्चे बस, हम दो, हमारे दो. There was a massive family planning, population control movement when I was in college. That's when, during the emergency, Sanjay Gandhi launched his forced sterilization movement, because the fear was population bomb. That there is a population bomb coming in, we'll all die. There was a Malthusian nightmare that Earth will simply not have enough to feed as many people as the Earth will generate or as will be born. Now, in the same generation, we are facing the second population bomb, which is the exact opposite of the first one. So the first one, say, beginning by teen years, was too many babies are being produced. Now, the new population bomb is too few babies are being produced. And that is creating problems. Now, the reason we are talking about this right now, I know that we have featured this issue in a few more episodes of Karta Clatter in the past, but the reason we are doing it right now, the immediate newspeg, as we call it, or provocation, that is the statements or concerns expressed by Chandrababu Naidu, the Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh, and M.K. Stalin, the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu. Chandrababu Naidu has said that, look, we need to produce more babies. This women must produce 2 or maybe more than 2. He's even talked of bringing in a legislation. Now you cannot legislatively coerce women to produce more babies. That's never worked. In China, they realized that you can coerce people to produce fewer babies. That if you produce more than one baby, we will punish you, right? So you can use punitive methods to reduce the production of babies, but you cannot use punitive methods to make people produce more babies. People will just say, even if the Communist Party puts the gun on your head, that I tried, but क्या करूँ, नहीं हो रहा है, right? आप कुछ कोशिश करके बताओ क्या करना चाहिए. So you cannot coerce people. What you can do is you can incentivize. So governments across the world are trying to find different ways of incentivizing. So once again, in the same generation, we have seen governments incentivizing people to produce fewer babies to now incentivizing them or rewarding them to produce more babies. Now, this is a complex debate in all of which we can't go right now. I will also share with you an article that our opinion editor Rama Lakshmi wrote on this. That article looks at this issue from a woman's point of view, because the burden of producing babies and looking after them actually falls on women. And this is a time when more and more women are going out to work. Families are becoming nuclear, so the support system of a joint family is not there, where grandmothers, grandparents will look after a baby even if the mother goes out to work. That is not there. So all of those are complex issues. These are not just social issues, but also personal issues, gender issues. However, governments are trying, and the important thing is they are trying to get more babies, not less. So Chandrababu Naidu has talked of a new legislation. Stalin, in fact, invoked a Tamil proverb or a Tamil old line of wisdom or a Tamil old blessing, which says, "May you be the mother of 16 children." Now, for heaven's sake, no. But in old times, people said all kinds of things. We know that Shah Jahan's favorite wife produced 13 babies. And in fact, she was in the process of producing the 14th when she died and Taj Mahal got built. So it's obvious that nobody should produce 16 babies, but that is just some wisdom from the past, and he has used it rhetorically to say that we are producing too many babies. Tamil Nadu right now is the most rapidly graying state in India. So once again, he has said that we have to produce more babies in Tamil Nadu. Now, what is the concern, the immediate concern? Now, Mr. Modi, Prime Minister Modi, he likes to invent his own acronyms and his own DDDs and AAAs and BBBs, right? Those sequences. So he's been talking about democracy, demand, diversity. Democracy, demand, diversity, demography, right? That has now been replaced with another set of Ds. So these are demography, depopulation, and delimitation. The third is a very important thing in India, and that is also driving the concern of the southern state chief ministers. In fact, I am surprised as yet that the Karnataka chief minister has not spoken out, but he's got problems of his own right now. And the Kerala chief minister has not spoken out, but there might be a political reason there that we'll talk about at some other point of time. But the fact is that the southern states have this concern. Where does this concern come from? Please look at this graphic. If you look at this graphic, see the numbers on this graphic. This graphic is color coded. The darker the color, the more the total fertility rate. Total fertility rate, as we keep explaining, is the number of babies a woman will produce in her reproductive years, which let's say are between the age of 16 and 50. 16 and 50. So now you might say, oh, Jammu and Kashmir, 1.4. One woman does not produce 1.4 children. What this means is that 10 women in their childbearing age will produce a total of 14 babies, or 100 women will produce 140 babies, like that. The replacement level there is 2.1, which means 10 women should produce in their childbearing age 21 babies, or 100 women 210 babies. Anything less than that, then your population is not being replaced and you will begin to get depopulation. That means your population will decline. Now, when you see our country right now, see also this tweet, and I will bring you back to this graphic, but see this tweet from Shamika Ravi. Shamika Ravi is an economist. She is also a member of the Economic Advisory Council to Prime Minister, that is EAC-PM. She tells you that 31 out of 36 states and union territories in India now have birth rates below replacement level. I told you the replacement level is 2.1 or 21 babies per 10 mothers. I keep repeating it, or 210 babies per 100 mothers. So anything below that is below replacement level. So she says 31 of the 36 are below replacement level. That's a cause for concern. Why is it a cause for concern? For a bunch of reasons. The main reason is that means the older people, the proportion of older people in your population goes up. Now, what's the problem with older people? I'm one of the older people, right? The problem is a lot of the older people do not work or are not able to work or are retirees. And also, nobody can remain as healthy or fit as they were in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, going ahead in their 60s, 70s, 80s, because people also live longer now. Life expectancy is going up. What that leads to is an adverse dependency ratio. Dependency ratio is a proportion of people in the working age compared with people who are dependent on them. So usually you would say that those below 15 children, those below 15, it's a very generous measure, those below 15 and those above 65, they are considered to be dependent population, which means the number of people between the age group of 15 and 65 should be large enough to produce income and taxes and surpluses and resources to look after these dependent populations, whether they are children or they are old people, their old age care, their pensions, etc., etc., etc. But as the number of older people goes up, the number of working age population comes down, and that's when dependency ratio becomes adverse and economies begin to suffer. We see already France is feeling the heat because you see many protests in France because 40% of France's population is now dependent. France also has a culture of very generous pensions, and even the French economy is not able to sustain this pension. Germany is heading for that problem. Spain has that problem. Italy has that problem. These are countries which had their baby bust a long time back. And you saw some effect of that when COVID first broke out. You remember how badly were Italy and Spain hit? These are countries with first-class medical care. Or number one, by that time, nobody knew what COVID was, and even the fact that you could use simple steroidal treatment to reduce fatalities was not yet known. But the reason these countries had very high fatalities was that their mean age was very old. So their people were aged already 45 plus on an average, and they had a lot of older people. And older people were a lot more vulnerable. Once again, I'm telling you this detail to explain to you where we are heading. Now, see China. The big crisis in China right now is a decline in population. The Chinese hid it for a few years, but the world knew it, that their population had stopped growing about 10, 15 years back. That happens when you use strong executive, sarkari, party power to mess with nature. They messed with nature by enforcing a one-child rule. It was a brutal one-child rule. In the process, their population began to decline. By the time they panicked, they said, okay, you can have 2. All right, you can have 3. And in this case, we'll incentivize you. People say, but we are not interested, right? In any case, by this time, because quality of life has gone up, cost of education has gone up, cost of child care has gone up. So this then becomes a vicious cycle. Let me say vicious trap. That's where China is the latest big country to be caught, and that's the reason India's population is still higher than China's and will perhaps continue to grow higher than China's. Now, what might happen is that these richer countries, even China, they might still have the wherewithal to deal with this aging population, because in any country with per capita income upwards of $10,000 still has that cushioning. In Japan now, 30% people are above the age of 65. But still, while there are concerns, Japan has a ministry actually for population growth. They call it for family happiness or something like that. But they've been trying to get people to produce more babies for decades now. The country that is now seeing the fastest decline in fertility rate is South Korea, one more developed country. It's also the history of humankind that a developed country, once it begins to see a decline in population, is never able to reverse it. No developed country has been able to reverse it. It's a different situation if there's been a big massacres in some place or big epidemics in some place in the past. Lots of deaths have taken place because of unnatural reasons. And that comes from poorer countries, poorer parts of the world. Then populations might have been replaced. But a developed country has never been able to reverse a declining population trend. And that is what Chandrababu Naidu and Stalin are worried about, because as I now take you back to this graphic, you can see what's happening in India. What are the 5 states? 31 of the 36, Shamika Ravi told us, are seeing a decline in population because they are producing babies below the replacement rate. Which are the ones which are producing enough babies to replace their population and maybe replace the population of some of the other states also, which is a concern. I'm not saying it's a problem. Any Indian can live anywhere, but it's a concern with some of the other states. Now see, Uttar Pradesh 2.4, right? Still above replacement level, but they've really controlled their population growth. They used to be about 3, say about 15 years ago. So 2.4. Bihar, the champion of champions, 3.0. They can make up for all the population decline in Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Tamil Nadu, Kerala. I'm not sure they want it, but they can do that. However, the problem is not that. Problem is not people from Bihar or UP going and working there. Problem is political, to which I will come. Then Jharkhand 2.3, about the same as UP. Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan almost at replacement level 2.0, 2.0. So this pretty much accounts for the so-called Bimaru states. Then you see all the other states, particularly states in the north and the west. Maharashtra, great, 1.7, below replacement. Gujarat, 1.9, below replacement. North, Haryana, 1.9, below just below replacement. Uttarakhand, 1.9 also, despite the fact that it's a very far-flung hill state, 1.9. Himachal Pradesh, 1.7. Punjab, 1.6. Punjab actually has a declining population. The population of 6 has also been declining. Jammu and Kashmir, defying all stereotypes, is 1.4%. It's among the fastest declining populations in the country. 1.4 is really low. It gets you into the European level of birth rates. Then you come south of course, Andhra 1.7, Tamil Nadu 1.8, Kerala 1.8. Those two have improved, in fact, on the upside lately. Karnataka 1.7, Goa 1.3, about the same as Jammu and Kashmir. Telangana 1.8, Odisha 1.8, Chhattisgarh 1.8. Now these defy the stereotypes of being tribal states, far-flung states, and also underdeveloped states. West Bengal, hold your breath, 1.6. West Bengal has a lower birth rate than Gujarat, then Maharashtra, then Karnataka, then Andhra. So West Bengal has done very well on many social indicators. The only other states where you see it's more than 2% or where it's more than replacement level are states with very small populations like Meghalaya, 2.9. It's been about the same as Bihar for a long time, and Manipur, 2.2. But the base of the population of these states is too small to make any impact at the national level. Now, I told you that while the growth of population in these big populous states, Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, even Jharkhand to that extent, they could make up for the losses or decline in some of the other states or the progressive states. And today, these are not just the southern states. Southern states are speaking out because they have a different kind of politics, but it's also the northern states and western states. They can make up for that population loss or decline. But the problem is that at some point of time, a delimitation of Indian Parliament has to take place. And a delimitation takes place, which will take place after the next census, which has been long delayed. But at some point, there will be a census, after which at least the constitution requires that there should be a delimitation. Now, if there is a delimitation that is based on population, that means in India's national parliament, percentage of seats will be allocated based on the new population, which means states like Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, and not just these, going ahead, Punjab, even Haryana, but Punjab, definitely Punjab, Odisha, West Bengal, they will suffer severely. Whereas the numbers of Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Jharkhand, those will go up. That's the political implication of what's going on right now, and that's what got these southern chief ministers. And remember, one of them is from the NDA alliance, the other is from the India alliance. So in a way, both alliances are speaking out in concern on the same issue with the same worry on their minds. Now, that is the political concern. Chances are, in the past, Indian governments, the last one being Vajpayee's government, has chosen to kick this can down the road. Last time, Vajpayee took a 25-year moratorium through a constitutional amendment that everybody voted for. This time, chances are that something similar will happen again, because I don't see how the progressive states will allow this kind of delimitation to take place. So in any case, first a census has to take place, then the question of whether it will be a caste census or not. We haven't seen any plans for the census, but when that happens, a delimitation will now become politically a very fraught exercise. And it's not even as if Modi government has a brute majority in Delhi that they can force it down the throat of many of these states. And now it's not just the southern states, it's almost all the states on India's peripheries, south, east, west, and north. So all of them will push back. So that is the big political issue that's coming in. There is also a social and economic issue, and that is the rising number of older people in India. Now, if you look at National Family Health Survey, NFHS 5, that's the data that's available to us. Unfortunately, we don't have a census data after 2011. That tells us that 12 crore Indians were above the age of 60 in 2021. Now, the data and also the calculations of Shamika Ravi and others, they tell us that in 2026, those above 60 in India will be more than those below 15. So that tells you that older people will be more than younger people. Once again, use the old metaphor of memories and dreams. So if your population with memories is larger than your population with dreams, I'm oversimplifying it, that has its own implications. Elderly were 10% of India's population in 2021. They'll be, elderly means 60 plus, they'll be 15% in 2036 and 20.8% or let's say 21% in 2050. Who will look after them, and from where will the resources come to look after them? That's why time has also come to plan old age care, also some kind of pensions, medical care, stuff like that, because families are getting more and more nuclear, and also among many families, the children are leaving and going overseas. And following the same logic, you can also presume that the progressive states, that's in the south, east, north, west, all on the peripheries, in the progressive states, aging will be much faster, or the graying will be much faster. The fact is that this is not just an Indian concern. Depopulation or degrowth of population is actually a global concern, because developing countries are seeing a decline in population growth. And as I said earlier, no developed country has ever been able to reverse it. So I comment to you a very interesting paper, a very informative paper, headlined The Age of Depopulation. See it on your screens, the front page. The Age of Depopulation, Surviving a World Gone Grey. This is written by Professor Nicholas Eberstadt. He is the Henry Wendt Chair in Political Science and Economics at American Enterprise Institute, and the paper is published in Foreign Affairs. I will share a link with you. Now, you can read the whole paper. It's a long paper and says many interesting things. But I will read out one passage for you, and that is the passage on India. And that tells you what we need to worry about and what is our demographic advantage or demographic dividend could also become a liability if we are not careful and if we are not smart right now. So this is what Nicholas Eberstadt says about India. And I quote from him, India is now the world's, you will see the para on your screen also, India is now the world's most populous country and on track to continue to grow for at least another few decades. Its demographics virtually assure that the country will be a leading power in 2050. Shabash, huh? Applaud at this point. Then what happens? Then comes the bummer. He says, but, whenever a but figures in a para, you know you are in trouble. But India's rise is compromised by human resource vulnerabilities. India has a world-class cadre of scientists, technicians, and elite graduates. Good news. But ordinary Indians, once again I told you, when a but comes, you are in trouble. But ordinary Indians receive poor education. A shocking 7 out of 8 young people in India today lack even basic skills, a consequence of both low enrollment and the generally poor quality of the primary and secondary schools available to those lucky enough to get schooling. The skills profile for China's youth. Listen to this carefully, hold your breath and worry. The skills profile for China's youth is decades, maybe generations ahead of India's youth today. India is unlikely to surpass a depopulating China in per capita output or even in total GDP for a very long time. That's one implication. However, that is not what this entire paper is about. This paper talks about many other implications. One of those implications also plays into today's changing or evolving international power balance. For example, if you look at America and its allies, I am now paraphrasing from the paper, it says that there is and now I'm quoting from it, the coalescing partnership among China, Iran, North Korea, and Russia is intent on challenging the US led Western order. These revisionist countries have aggressive and ambitious leaders and are seemingly confident in their international objectives. And then comes the dreaded but. But the demographic tides are against them. And how are the demographic tides against them? That is because in all of these countries, population is declining very fast. And it's a surprise for me that even in Iran, the population is declining very fast. So you see Jammu and Kashmir, you see Iran. So the stereotypes that we've been fed all this while, that Muslims produce too many babies, etc., you can see that coming to naught right now. So Iran also has a rapidly declining population, and that will be a liability of them. And then as you read on, you also see where populations will rise. So populations, as the other big populated countries, China, India, they control their population. Populations, Bangladesh has already done a marvelous job of going below replacement level. Pakistan is still rising, will keep rising for some time, although they are moderating, but not enough. But then much of the population rise in the world will come from African countries, the big African countries. And that, in a way, will mirror the Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, Jharkhand kind of situation in India, the five states and union territories where population is still growing. And those are the challenges that these new demographics will present, not just for India, but also for the world in general. Now, I will conclude this with a graphic which is inspired from what the Foreign Affairs paper has carried, but we are making our own graphic based on the same data from United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, population division. And this graphic tells you, see how these worms crawl. They are all crawling up. This tells you how the percentage of population 65 and older is rising across many countries, in some cases clubbed as regions. So if you see, for example, East Asia, East Asia is probably rising the fastest. That is Japan, China, South Korea. Those are the ones who are aging the fastest. Europe is just about there. Maybe the reason Europe has not beaten them is Europe has had a lot of immigration, particularly from the broken countries in the Middle East, Afghanistan, and many countries like that, also from India and Pakistan. So otherwise Europe would have gone ahead of them. Then see the US. The US is holding its own, still aging, but holding its own, again because the US has immigration. Then you look at India. India again is aging. It's not at the same level as Southeast Asia or Latin America or Caribbean either. Forget EU, US and East Asia, which are way ahead. But India is also now rising quite steeply. The population of 65 plus people. The line that's nearly flat, it is still growing a little bit, but very little bit. It's nearly flat. That line is sub-Saharan Africa. Once again, you can see where populations are declining the fastest and where they are rising the fastest. And that's where you have this new demographics or depopulation now defining not just domestic politics, but also the international balance of power.